Hello everyone and welcome to episode 17 of my Orc Shaman level 1 through 60 playthrough in the Season of Discovery, where today should be a pretty fun episode because I want to explore a brand new zone. But as we explore that zone, I want to go ahead and dive deep into an aspect of World of Warcraft that I've talked about a little bit over my Let's Play series, but I really want to dive deep into in this episode and kind of talk about how it exists in vanilla and then also the evolution of it throughout World of Warcraft's history. And that system is professions, where basically I want to explore a few different professions that we can currently explore here on our character, where for anyone who has been watching this series, you know that I am a skinning and leatherworking professional, if you will, where I am currently in Thunderbluff because Thunderbluff is the great location for leatherworkers because they have the spot that you need to go to get to like the second highest level of leatherworking available for Horde characters, and then we are about to go to the location where you can get the best level of leatherworking, where we are kind of reaching the end of our leatherworking journey, where we are almost like 2/3 of the way through, where the last 100 points to 300 points is going to be really challenging and probably not something that I complete in this series because there's not too much of a point to do it, where you will be able to unlock a bunch of super kind of like high level like pre-bis raid gear and stuff through leatherworking that requires you to get a bunch of super rare and hard to find and expensive materials. But I want to go ahead and come chat with the trainer here, where I need to get 3 points. So I'm going to go ahead and explore the leatherworking a little bit, where we can also look at our skinning skill point right here, where we are at 252 out of 300 skinning. So we are in the last stretch of that, and we will probably reach 300 by the end of this Let's Play series. But for leatherworking, let's go ahead and find, let's see here. I think I want to turn these heavy hides into cured heavy hides. So let's go ahead and come down here, where we need 9 pieces of salt to do that, where this is kind of just like a basic recipe where you are getting some items from skinning, and then you have to come to a vendor here to buy some supplies to then use to turn this item into another item, and then we use this item to make other items. And while we're here, we can see that there are some tailoring recipes being sold and another one there, and looks like nothing for leatherworking, even though Mahu is a leatherworking and a tailoring supplies vendor. But let's come back up here, where we can see we need, let's buy 3 fine thread and then 3 green dye. Really, the dye is like really interesting because we have these like cheaper dyes here, and then we have like more expensive dyes where purple and pink dyes are super expensive. So if you ever see someone wearing something that's kind of purplish or pinkish at like a higher level, you know that it's kind of a tiny bit more expensive compared to other things, which is fun. But leatherworking is something that I have been doing for this entire series because it's been nice to go through our leatherworking training here and to just kind of make a few different things, where I'm not sure if I'm currently wearing anything because I haven't done too much leatherworking in a while. I have these 2 armor pieces right here which are nice, and I have these bracers, and the one that I'm currently making might actually, yeah, that's definitely better than what we have on right now. So I might go ahead and actually equip one of these. But as we craft this last one, I wish, of course, in vanilla World of Warcraft, a lot of crafting stuff takes a very long time in order to complete. So we're kind of just sitting here as this bar fills up. We can go ahead and equip this because that's a little bit better. And I also have this recipe here that we can go ahead and learn. And I'm probably not going to make it, but we can see wherever it went. Right here, Guardian armor has a pretty nice piece of armor, but I don't think it's necessarily better than what we currently have equipped. And we also need shadow oil, which I believe is from alchemy, which is very interesting. But let's go ahead and come to our leatherworking trainer again, where we can learn barbaric harness and guardian gloves. So part of that guardian set, where it's kind of interesting that we can like learn the guardian gloves from the trainer here, but then the guardian armor we had to get from a world drop. But we now have the guardian gloves, which actually looks like a pretty good item for us to be able to make. Looks pretty cheap. And then the barbaric harness is not better than what we currently have equipped, but it does look pretty cool. Where for this, let's go ahead, come to the Artisan Leatherworker, and at 195 we will learn some new things. So I think I'm going to go ahead and spend a little bit of gold because I'm not too concerned about like having a ton of gold on this character, so I don't mind splurging a little bit, and I might come buy some more heavy hides, where I have made 8 more heavy hides. So we can go ahead and get to leatherworking 200 just by crafting guardian gloves, but let's start by only crafting 5. So let's go ahead and buy some silken thread. Very similar to the dye. We can see that in order to create like higher level armor, where I think the dyes are kind of random depending on like what you need, but it tends to be like higher level ones are like pink and purple and black. But with the threads, in order to create higher level armor, we need higher level threads. So when we started all the way down here, we needed coarse thread, and then part way up, maybe right here, we needed fine thread, and now you can see we need silken thread, and it went from 9 copper to 90 copper to 4.5 silver, and next it will be 18 silver and then 45 silver, which is a lot of money. And a nice aspect about leatherworking and kind of every profession in general is how you can just sell the stuff you made. You could sell it on the trading post, but I doubt anyone would buy these. But you can just sell them to a vendor to get a little bit of the money back that you spent. And if you are an enchanter as well, you can disenchant like green, blue, and purple items that you make in order to level your enchanting as well. But of course you lose out on the potential money, where we have Dusky Belt here, which this looks better than what I currently have. And speaking of the black dye, let's go ahead and come down back to the auction house, and I think I might go ahead and make this just so we have it, where we lose out on a little bit of spirit, but we gain some stamina and agility, where iron buckles are a crafting ingredient made by blacksmiths. So in the vanilla version of World of Warcraft, we have a lot of kind of like different collaborations going on between different professions, where we saw earlier we needed an alchemy thing, and now we need an iron buckle, which is only 1/4 of a gold, which is nice. And we need bolts of silk, which is from a tailor, which I can make these, but I'm not going to swap over. I don't care too much about that. Where the last thing I need is some black dye, so let's come to the supplies, and let's go ahead and buy 2 of these, and then we can go ahead and create this, which is going to take a little bit of time. And you can see we currently have this kind of black belt on right now, this green leather belt. It doesn't look really green, but if you preview this, we can see it looks almost exactly the same, but you can tell that the buckle is a little green here. I kind of see it now, and it's a lot more gray and black right here, and we can see some of the belt loops as well. Where let's go ahead and equip this, so we are now a little bit stronger with the things we have crafted. And let's go ahead and just create 4 more of these guardian gloves. So we need 4 silken thread, and then we will be leatherworking at 200, where we are now leatherworking 200. So let's come over here, and we can now make cured thick hide, and we can make thick armor kits, and we can make thick leather now, where this trainer is going to give us stuff all the way up to level 225 leatherworking. But we can see that there are only 6 items left to learn from this trainer, who is the second best trainer for horde characters, which means we are going to have to start going to another trainer somewhere else in the world in order to learn the best stuff, where the best stuff is recipes dropped from like raid bosses and from other sources, which we probably won't be getting any of those. But since we are leatherworking 200 now, we can go ahead and train up to the final level of leatherworking, so we have the ability to get to leatherworking 300, because currently we are capped at 225. So we're going to have to head over to that new person, but that is leatherworking and skinning, where I've explored leatherworking a little bit in different Let's Play series, and I have explored like tailoring and stuff like that so far, and for the most part all the different professions are kind of like the same idea, where there's some intricacies, and like especially with engineering there's like a bunch of fun gadgets you can create, and I might explore a little bit more in future Let's Play series and also in my streams. But now I want to go ahead and explore the 3 secondary professions, where there is a 4th one that is added in Cataclysm that I might explore on a stream, and then there is also one that is removed in the future of World of Warcraft, which I'm looking for the third one, and I think we might have to go to it later. But first, let's explore cooking, where we can go ahead and come to this cooking trainer here, and I've done a little bit of it in like episode 2 or 3 a very long time ago now, but we can see we can learn a few things from here. But when it comes to cooking, it really relies on picking up a bunch of different recipes from a bunch of different sources, where I currently have 4 cooking recipes right here, which I have all gotten from different quests. This one is from the Badlands, this one is from Hillspread Foothills, this one is also from Hillspread Foothills, and this one might also be from Hillspread Foothills. But let's go ahead and come to the cooking tree here, where I'm only going to do a little bit of this, but let's go ahead and see where I can make 10 boiled clams. Where cooking is very nice because we can go ahead and get some different items from different mobs and from fishing from all around the world, and we can just cook it up so we can get some food that is going to be good for us to eat, and it's going to buff us up a little bit, which is nice. So this is going to be able to give us +4 stamina and +4 spirit for a total of 15 minutes after we eat it. So it might be a nice snack to have in our inventory just to get a little bit of buff as we adventure. But we also have all these different cooking recipes that we can go ahead and learn, where we just reached cooking level 80, so we can go ahead and unlock smoked sage fish, which is going to be nice if I wanted to cook this cooking recipe. Well, let's go ahead and get that. And if I look down here, we have all of these, but I think that is basically all I kind of want to do with cooking, where it's kind of just like a fun thing. And I might go ahead and just sell all these different items on the auction house, so we can go ahead and make a little bit of money, and we can use that money in the future. But if we come over to the fishing trainer, we can actually go ahead and unlock fishing, which I haven't done yet, but I have bought the tool that you need in order to do fishing, which is a fishing pole. But let's go ahead and learn that, and then come to the fishing supplier, where I guess we could buy a brilliant smallfish, and let's buy a shiny bauble, and let's go find a body of water. Just learn this brilliant smallfish, and then as I mentioned, we need to equip a fishing pole in order to fish. So let's go ahead and equip this, which is going to unequip our 2 axes, but now we have this fishing pole. So if we're out in the world, we want to make sure that we like re-equip our axes, because this fishing pole does 1 damage per second, and I think we can use like our other abilities, of course, except for lava lash, which requires a melee weapon, but we are going to struggle a little bit. But if we come into our general tab here, we can go ahead and find the fishing skill, and we can go ahead and fish in this pond here, which is a very popular place to fish at. And we can just press the skill, and fishing is very simple, where once you press it, it throws out a fishing bobber there that is going to sit and sit and sit until we saw right there. Fishing at level 1 is actually kind of challenging to do, where we are in a pretty easy area to fish in, where when you go to like higher level areas, you can get like higher level fish, but it's like more challenging to do so. Where we can level up fishing from level 1 to 300 just by sitting here, but basically if you look in our general tree here, as we catch a fish, our fishing is going to go up by 1, but as it goes up a little bit higher, it's going to start taking 2 fish to level up, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5, and then 6, and 7, and then I think it maxes out at like 8 or something. So it takes a very long time to level up your fishing the further down you go into fishing. But I can go ahead and try to catch this fish once I see this bob or bob. There we go. If the fish got away, and I instantly clicked there. But something I can do to help out our fishing is to add this shiny bauble, and there are a few other things you could add to your fishing pole that will increase your fishing power, where the shiny bauble will increase it by 25, and then there are better things that will increase it even higher, where our fishing skill, if you look here, is 2 plus 25, so it is currently 27, so we're going to have a little bit of an easier time catching fish like we just caught right there. And fishing in World of Warcraft is relatively straightforward and relatively basic, especially in the classic WoW version of the game, where it's kind of fun to be able to get to fishing level 300, because you have to do some interesting quests that take you like all around the world, where you have to fish up like some special fish, and you interact with a very popular NPC known as Nat Pago. But I don't think this is something that I am particularly interested in doing on this character, especially not getting to fishing level 300, because I don't see too much point for this character since I'm more interested in questing and exploring the lore and story of the world around us. So let's go ahead and try to catch one more fish so we can be fishing level 5. There we go, we caught a raw brilliant sunfish or small fish, where if we come down here we can see that we can actually make 3 long jaw mud snappers if you wanted, and a brilliant small fish. But I think I'm going to call that good for now. So let's go ahead and equip this axe and this axe as well. And now let's go ahead and explore the final profession really quickly, where let's find a guard, where we have these bluff watchers around here, and in any major capital city we can go ahead and find one of the guards and talk to them to get directions to a place, where I want directions to the first aid trainer, because oh yeah, they're in the spirit rise. So let's go ahead and head over there, where I'll swap my action bar there. We can get on our wolf, and we have all of our axes, and our shiny bauble is still going to be going for 8 more minutes, but I'm not going to use any more of that. Where I think the first aid trainer is down here, but they might be on this, they're on the surface. They're in that one tent right there, aren't they? If we come up here, we can see the first aid trainer right here. I thought it was this tent, but it's this tent over here. And we can go ahead and learn first aid, which is kind of similar in a way to tailoring, because you use cloth that you get from different humanoids around the world. And I guess I'll just throw first aid right there, because why not? Where we can see in here, we can go ahead and make linen bandages, or I just bought a few linens just so we could have some for this, where we can go ahead and create these bandages, and then we can see we can use them to heal us for some health over a short duration. So this is really, really good, especially for like warriors and rogues, because this is like a nice source of healing, where if we equip this, we can see we're just healing ourselves. And of course, these are the first tier bandages, so they're really not worth too much, but we can learn more and more. But similar to fishing and cooking, we can go ahead and go all around the world to unlock some better items that we can create, so we can have some stronger stuff. But I think with that is all of the crafting stuff, profession stuff that I wanted to look at the start of this episode, where I want to go and talk about the evolution of crafting and kind of some of my favorite highlights in future expansions as we explore the next zone. But in order to explore the next zone, we have to get to the next zone, because we have not been there yet, and it is a zone that is a little bit lower level than us at the start, but a little bit higher level at us at the end. So I think we are at a good spot where we can be able to easily get through the first part of the zone, and we'll level up a little bit to be able to kind of beat the challenges towards the end. And of course, I'm probably not going to do everything, but let's go ahead and fly to Free Wind Post, where we are now in Free Wind Post, where I just mounted up, and I think we're about to get dismounted again, where we are in the Thousand Needles, and we have gone east and then south through the Shimmering Flats into Tenaris. But today I want to go ahead and go west northwest and go out of the third and final entrance into the Thousand Needles, if you considering the Grey Lift is an entrance as well, which is how we got here a few episodes ago for the first time. But I want to go into Feralas, which is a very fun zone that is connected to the Thousand Needles, and it's also connected to Desolus, which we have explored, and Desolus is a very fun area. But Feralas is also a very, very fun jungle, where we have a quest here that we can do, but we also have the main Horde outpost here, plus a few other things that we can go ahead and find around this area that we can consider doing and exploring. But first we have to get to this main Horde outpost, where I'm going to pick up all the quests, and then we can begin exploring. But before we do that, I want to find one specific NPC. But let's get through the Thousand Needles first. But as we reach the western end of the Thousand Needles, we can say goodbye to the Thousand Needles behind us, which is a very unique and interesting area. But there is a spot in Feralas that might remind us of this a tiny bit. But there's also a very stark difference here, where there's an Alliance camp right here, but we can see that it is very red and barren in the Thousand Needles, and very green and lush and Feralas, with giant trees and a ton of foliage. And we can go ahead and get onto the road here in the lower wilds, and we are now officially in Feralas, which I think is one of my favorite zones to just run through. Like, the road system here is really fun, with like some cool bridges and very cool sights, and just a very nice vibe and atmosphere to this entire zone. where we can see that there is an iron fur bear over there that is level 41, so we are definitely a little bit stronger than these mobs right here, where we just need to get through this spot right here where we can see that there's actually some stuff similar to the Thousand Needles right here, but I was thinking of the twin colossi up here, which are two giant kind of like needles or bluffs that we can see, and we can go ahead and maybe probably just run around it a little bit, but we can continue down this road, where as a Horde player it is actually very nice to travel through this part of the road, because we have the main Horde town that is right here along the road, where if you are an Alliance player you have to navigate around that Horde camp, and you basically just have to like run into like the wilds over here and run around to the other side. But we can see that we have this camp right here, and we have some braves, where let's go ahead and get into this area and start picking up all these quests. And we have a quest that we can turn in, a threat in Feralas. So we can also find the Wind Rider Master right there, and there's a person fishing, and we saw an herbalism trainer and some alchemy supplies right there, which is fun. But let's talk to the Wind Rider Master, and we can connect this place to the rest of Kalimdor that we have explored. And we got a goblin that we can go ahead and get some quests from. And let's go ahead and talk to this person over here, where we actually got some higher level quests right here. One of which is to go to Felwood, to the northern end of Felwood, to do level 52 quest, which is super interesting. But I need to chat with this orc right here who's wandering through the town, so let's go ahead and chat with her, and then we can fight some of the ogres around here. And we have a few other quests as well, like this witch doctor right here, where we have a quest to go to the sunken temple if we wanted to. We have a quest in here where I can go ahead and speak with the leatherworking supplies right here, and we can go ahead and do some quests that are kind of related to gathering the leather, one of which is to turn this in, and we can complete that, and we completed that. And now we can go ahead and bring some armor kits and some different things to this person, where I think I'm going to actually, where is it, leatherworking. We can go ahead and abandon this, and I'll do this in a little bit, where we can just unlock a few different armor pieces. But we can see we have this master leatherworker right here that we can learn artisan leatherworking from, and we can learn some new things. So that's going to be fun to look at, and these quests look pretty fun to do, so we can do that as we explore Feralas. But we are now level, or have the ability to get to level 300 leatherworking, which is very fun. Another quest here to pick up, so let's go ahead and pick that up, and then let's run over here really quickly, where I think I'm going to have to get rid of one of the quests that I currently have. So let's get rid of this one for now, and we can pick it up later, because we're probably not going to do that for a few more episodes. And let's come pick up this quest right here, a new cloak's sheen, so we can go ahead and pick that up. And we can now see we have a ton of quest markers all around this road, and we can begin exploring all of that. And I can go ahead and continue talking about professions, and we can explore that a tiny bit more as well. So let's go ahead and begin our adventures in Feralas. Like I have said throughout this video so far, professions are just a pretty big and important part of World of Warcraft, and they are something that I have interacted with since I've started playing the game so long ago, but they are not something that I'm necessarily really super focused on a lot, where when we look at professions themselves and then professions throughout the history of World of Warcraft, there is a lot we can talk about, where I just want to go over a brief kind of like summarized list of each of the professions in the game, and also some of my personal experiences with them. And then I want to go over kind of some of the big changes that we see, at least from the first few expansions that I played. We're starting off, we have the gathering professions, where the first one is herbalism, where you can harvest herbs found throughout the world, and from the bodies of some creatures you can detect nearby herbs on the minimap, where this is just a pretty simple gathering profession, where there are different plants like Peace Bloom and Silverleaf are the first two plants that you can find all throughout the world of Azeroth, and you can harvest them. And you can use those herbs for a variety of different things, where they are most commonly used in alchemy, so herbalism and alchemy kind of pair well together, where this is just like a pretty fun basic kind of crafting profession that you can just pick up, where you're not really crafting anything and it's only for like gathering pretty much. and you just run around the road and pick plants, and that's like a pretty fun thing to do. Where the second gathering profession is mining, where you can mine ore, stones, and raw gems from protruding veins or deposits. Also teaches you the smelting sub-profession, which allows the use of a forge to smelt the ore into bars of metal. You can detect nearby ore deposits on the minimap. Where this is a profession that goes well with any other profession that uses a lot of minerals, so namely blacksmithing, engineering, and jewel crafting, which we'll talk about in just a moment. And this is kind of just another type of profession that's kind of just fun to have because you can just gather a bunch of things and use them. But I do think it is probably my least favorite of the three gathering professions, because when it comes to mining ore veins, there's like so much competition for like ore veins, and you also get like so many different types of materials from the ore veins. So in like the classic versions of the game and in modern versions of the game, it can really like fill up your inventory, which can be kind of annoying when you're like really fighting for inventory space. And then when you are mining veins in the vanilla version of World of Warcraft, it oftentimes takes you multiple hits in order to successfully harvest everything from a vein, where in future versions, I believe it started in Wrath of the Lich King, but it might have been TBC, you only have to gather once to get all of the materials, which is nice. And then the third and final gathering profession is skinning, where you can skin the corpse of certain creatures for their hides, leather, and scale, where I've been doing this for our entire Let's Play series, and I did this on my Tauren Hunter hardcore Let's Play series, and it's just a very basic idea where this works really well for like a lot of aspects of the game, where you can just go kill beasts and dragonkin and then skin them once you loot them and just get some extra materials, where like bottom line, just having this profession is going to increase like your gold income. If you just sell the leather to like a vendor, you're just going to be making some like free gold with the cost of inventory space to hold that leather, of course. But then of course you can sell the leather on the auction house to get even more gold, which is just a nice bonus on top. And then this pairs well with leatherworking, so if you are a leather wearer like an early shaman or like a rogue or a hunter, this is nice to have. But going into the other professions, we have alchemy, which is a production profession. Mix potions, elixirs, flasks, and oils and other alchemical substances into vials using herbs and other reagents. Your concoctions can restore health and mana, enhance attributes, or provide any number of other useful or not so useful effects. High-level alchemists can also transmute essences and metals into other essences and metals. Alchemists can specialize as a master of potion, master of elixirs, or a master of transmutation, where this is a really cool profession that is probably one of the main professions, or one of two main professions that I have picked up and used in my time playing World of Warcraft on different characters, especially like my final main character in Modern WoW, where you can basically just get a bunch of herbs and then do some alchemy and get some really, really nice beneficial potions, including like health potions to restore your health, but also some really powerful buffs that are generally always needed for raiding and dungeons and whatnot. And then we can see that alchemists can specialize into a master potions, elixirs, or transmutation, which the specialization is a common thing that we see with these like production professions, or it's not with every single one, but it's pretty often, and it just allows you to unlock certain recipes that other specializations cannot unlock. And then we have blacksmithing, which is another production where you can smith various melee weapons, mail and plate armor, and other useful trade goods like skeleton keys, shield spikes, and weapon chains to prevent disarming. Blacksmiths can also make various stones to provide temporary physical buffs to weapons, where this is probably one of my least used professions in the game, where blacksmithing is really cool for like warriors or paladins to be able to like make some cool gear, and Death Knights as well in the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, where for whatever reason this is just a profession that I never really picked up on any of those characters, even though I played Death Knight a lot, where it just gets you some gear, and you can get gear like a lot of different ways, and it's definitely nice for leveling. But for endgame, it's nice in like vanilla World of Warcraft, but I feel like it's not super important in endgame and future versions of the game. And then you also often have to pick up mining in order to level this profession, which I talked a little bit about like my distaste for mining earlier, which kind of just carries over to blacksmithing because of that. But then we have enchanting, which is a service and production profession, where you can imbue all manner of equipable items with magical properties and enhancements using dusts, essences, and shards gained by disenchanting, breaking down magical items that are no longer useful. Enchanters can also make a few low-level wands as well as oils that can be applied to weapons, providing a temporary magical buff. Where out of all the professions, enchanting might be my least favorite profession in the game, where blacksmithing would come in second place probably, and where I do enjoy the buffs that you get from enchanting, but when it comes to leveling enchanting, especially in the vanilla version of the game, I feel like it's really bad because you have to disenchant all of these different like weapons and armor that you get from the out in the world from doing quests and from killing mobs and stuff in order to level your enchanting and in order to use enchanting to buff up your other gear. But by disenchanting all these things and using the essences and whatnot you get from these magical goods, you lose out on a lot of potential money. So when I was playing my first character in World of Warcraft Classic in 2019, I picked up tailoring and enchanting, but I was really struggling in the gold department because of enchanting, and I still kind of have a bad taste because of my experience there. And then we have engineering, which is a production profession where you can engineer a wide range of mechanical devices, including trinkets, guns, goggles, explosives, and mechanical pets, using metals, minerals, and stone. As most engineering products can only be used by suitably adept engineers, it is not as profitable as other professions. It is, however, often taken to be one of the most entertaining, affording its adherents with numerous unconventional and situationally useful abilities. Engineers can specialize as goblin or gnomish engineers, where engineering is my personal favorite profession in all of World of Warcraft, and it tends to be the most popular across the board, where you can get some really cool items from engineering that just helps you out a lot out in the world. And you get some really fun items like different gadgets that can teleport you to like different continents, and then you can get like a parachute and a hang glider, and then you can also get like special pets, and then you can get like a special mailbox, and you can get like a special vendor, and there's just so many cool things you can get with engineering. And with Goblin Engineering, you can learn how to build some really cool bombs that are sometimes super important DPS tools. And then with Gnomish Engineering, you can make even more super cool items that are super helpful and beneficial for you, which just makes engineering even more cooler. Where when it came to the modern version of World of Warcraft, on my final character, I was an engineer and an alchemist, which is very interesting because you typically want to pick up mining to go with engineering and then herbalism to go with alchemy, but I had enough gold income just from like playing the game and doing dailies and doing like some raids and stuff that I was just getting enough gold to be able to buy all of the minerals and all of the herbs that I needed to level up and then to create the things I wanted with those professions. And I thought that was like a very like nice combination to have, because I got so many different buffs from engineering and I got so many different buffs from alchemy, where I just felt super powerful. And then we have leatherworking, which is another production profession where you can work leather and hides into goods such as leather and mail armor, armor kits, and some capes. Leather workers can also produce a number of utility items, including large profession bags, ability augmenting drums, and riding crops to increase mount speed. Where I've been leveling a leather worker in this series and we talked about it a lot, and it's very nice on like a shaman character, and it's also nice on like a rogue and a hunter where we can get some cool items. Then we have tailoring, which is another production profession where you can sew cloth armor and many kinds of bags using dye, thread, and cloth gathered from humanoid enemies during your travels. Tailors can also fashion nets to slow enemies with, rideable flying carpets, and magical threads which empower items they are stitched into. Since patch 8.0.1, also be able to craft bandages, which is something we'll talk about in a moment. But tailoring is another one of my favorite professions in the game, partially because you can get some really cool armor when you are playing like a mage, a priest, or a warlock, but especially because this is the primary profession for making bags, and bags are so nice to have. And I always have a ton of fun on like fresh servers with rolling the tailor and making bags for everyone on the server at like the starting town and like Bro in the undead area, for example, which is what I did in the season of Discovery when it originally launched on my undead mage character that I have been playing a little bit of. And you also get cloth just from fighting enemies, so you don't need any of the other gathering professions. But it might be nice to pick up skinning because it could help with your tailoring, because sometimes you need like certain pieces of leather to create some different things in tailoring. And overall, just a pretty great and solid profession. Where those are all of the primary professions that you could pick up in vanilla World of Warcraft, but we see more added in future expansions, where the first one added is jewel crafting, which was added in the Burning Crusade, the first expansion, and it is a new production profession where you can cut and polish powerful gems that can be socketed into armor and weapons to augment their attributes, or fashioned into rings, necklaces, trinkets, and jeweled headpieces. Also teaches you the prospecting ability, which sifts through raw ore to uncover the precious gems needed for your craft. Where this is kind of similar to blacksmithing in a way where it really requires you to have like mining to get like a bunch of gems and whatnot. And it basically just allows you to create some like pieces of equipment that were previously missing from other crafting professions, so it kind of fills a gap in the profession slot, but it also adds on to like the new gem and socket system that was introduced with the Burning Crusade, which that is kind of similar to enchanting in a way, where you can put some like stat increases into different gear. But then the second and most recent / last primary profession to be added into the game is Inscription, which was added in the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, which was the second expansion to the game, which was a very, very long time ago when we look at it in the context of modern World of Warcraft, where when you look at all the professions, it kind of seems like every single gap is filled by the current professions that exist, so there doesn't seem to be much need for a new profession, but we could obviously see more in the future. But it is a service and production profession where you can inscribe glyphs that modify existing spells and abilities for all classes, in addition to various scrolls, staves, playing cards, and offhand items. A scribe can also create vellums for the storing of an enchanter's spells, and scribe only scrolls used to teleport around the world, albeit a tad randomly. Also teaches you the milling ability, which crushes herbs into various pigments used in turn for a scribe's ink. Where this is a profession that relies heavily on herbalism, where you use the herbs in order to make these inscription things, and it feels like a really random profession where they introduced like the glyph system, and it's been overhauled a lot over the years, where originally it was like a way to increase a lot of power on your character, and nowadays it's a lot of like special customization stuff, where I think if I were to play Inscription like nowadays, I would have a lot of fun with it because there's like a lot of fun things you can do, but largely nothing too big and important. But then we have secondary professions, where first we have cooking, which is a production profession where you can combine ingredients into delicious food that can restore health and mana and provide temporary buffs. These buffs can increase most any attribute, and some give you unusual passive abilities. Also teaches you the ability to create campfires, which are usually required to cook, where I really enjoy this profession, and I love the concept of campfires and just being able to build like a campfire out in the world, so it's always like a nice thing to have. And then fishing, which is a gathering profession where you can fish from lakes, rivers, oceans, and more using a fishing pole. The items you fish up can be anything from great junk to epic treasures and even rideable mounts. Which fishing, again, another really, really fun profession, and it's just really fun to see how this evolves over the years, which I'll talk about in just a moment. And then we have first aid, which is a service and production profession where you can weave and apply cloth bandages and poison cleansing antivenoms, considered a must-have profession for all classes who are not able to heal themselves by magical means. Now, this is another really good and fun profession, especially for people who are like warriors or hunters or rogues who don't have the ability to heal themselves by magical means. But this profession was actually removed in patch 8.0.1 and was incorporated into the tailoring profession, and I think the antivenoms went to alchemy or something, or maybe were just removed from the game altogether, where I feel like that was a very interesting choice, because having bandages be a part of tailoring means that warriors would have to pick up tailoring in order to get the bandages, but then also with modern day World of Warcraft, warriors have, and like every other profession, have like a lot of avenues to heal themselves nowadays, so it doesn't really matter too much. And then there's also like food that exists as like an additional out of combat thing, so it's like a very interesting balance where I feel like having first aid in the game still would be like a great thing, but it doesn't exist in the game anymore, which is kind of disappointing. But then we have archaeology, which from all of the professions, this is the final and most recent profession added to the game in the Cataclysm expansion. So we had one added in the Burning Crusade, one added in the next expansion, Wrath Lich King, and one added in the next expansion, Cataclysm, and then nothing added thereafter. Where this is a gathering profession where you can unearth and reconstruct valuable artifacts from the cultures across Azeroth and beyond, often earning unique and mysterious rewards. Where I feel like this is a really fun profession that is getting a lot of hate right now in the classic WoW community, because you have all these like people who are no-lifing for like a stat increase, and they're like really mad that like the RNG is not working towards them, because they just want to be a tiny bit more powerful because that's how they want to play the game. And they are really hating on archaeology because of like their passion towards being slightly more powerful, which good for them, but I feel like the hate is kind of unwarranted towards this, where I've always kind of enjoyed just running around the world and gathering all these things and unlocking different super cool items. And it's always been a fun profession, and in the Mist of Pandaria expansion, it got a lot of focus in that expansion, which is a lot of fun. And then I don't think it's really been added on to a lot since Mist of Pandaria, where I think that's a good way to transition into how these professions have evolved over the years, where if you are to look at all the primary professions, we see with every single expansion, and then we see this with the secondary professions too, but specifically focusing on the primary ones right now, every single profession gets like a new set of items and a new amount of skills with each expansion. So if you take tailoring, for example, we can get up to level 300 tailoring using all the different cloths and stuff from around Azeroth. But with the Burning Crusade expansion, we see that the level goes up to 375 with a new tier, and then there's new cloth, so you can make new bolts, and there's new thread, and a bunch of other new items that you need for tailoring. So you just get like a bunch of new things in order to make a bunch of new things. And we see that across the board with all of these different professions, where with Wrath Lich King, we saw it go up to level 450. And a very interesting part about Wrath Lich King is how, in order to get to 450, you have to get to like 375, and then you have to get to level 300, where this is a very similar idea to just leveling your character as well. But when we look at the evolution and development of World of Warcraft, we see that more and more expansions are added to the game, where I think this changed in Warlords of Draenor. It might have changed in like Legion or something, I'm not 100% sure. But by the time of the end of Mist of Pandaria, let's just go with that for an example, we had level 300 tailoring, so you have to go through Azeroth to get to 300 tailoring, and then you get to 375 in the Burning Crusade, and then you get to level 450 in Wrath Lich King, and then you need to get to level 525 in Cataclysm, and then you need to get to level 600 in Mist of Pandaria. So we can see it was just getting out of hand, where nowadays in the modern version of the game, you learn one of these professions, which allows you to go from like level 1 to 300 for like the base set of like the profession, and then every single expansion you can learn their profession individually. So you can learn the Burning Crusade tailoring, and then you can learn Wrath tailoring, Cataclysm tailoring, Mist of Pandaria tailoring, and so on and so forth, which is like a standalone like level 1 to 75 like leveling journey in each profession. And this is just a phenomenal change for the profession system as a whole, and it is very nice in the modern version of the game. But I really enjoy like the classic version of the game as well, where it's a lot more limited in concept, because classic is a lot more limited in concept in general. Where largely we just see a bunch of new stuff added to these professions over the years. But then we have the secondary professions, which I really enjoy how they are done in future versions of the game. Where specifically looking at cooking and fishing, I love these two professions, especially in the first 4 expansions of the game, which I played through, and Warlords of Draenor on. I'm sure these professions are still good in those expansions, but I just don't have a lot of personal experience with them, so I can't really talk too much about like my experience with them, given the fact that I don't have much. But both of these professions see a lot of like special dailies and special rewards introduced for each of these professions, where you can go and find like special cooking people and special fishing people in each of the different expansions somewhere in the continent, and you can do very fun daily quests, where I especially love the ones in Delarian, where I just love those daily cooking and fishing quests so much, and they're one of my favorite parts about the Wrath of the Lich King expansion. And I'm very upset that we no longer have Wrath of the Lich King Classic, because those were just taken away from me again, where I can go back and do them, but it just doesn't feel the same without having like Wrath of the Lich King being like the main thing in the game. But overall, cooking and fishing are just phenomenal professions, just like all of the other professions in the game as well. Where I just want to briefly highlight at the end of the video here the concept of pseudo-professions, which are unlike primary and secondary professions in that they are either learned or leveled in unusual ways. Some are automatically available to specific classes, similar to abilities, while others are purchased outright, requiring no player interaction to increase. Where 2 of these can only be learned by rogues, where there are poisons, which allow a rogue to create poisons which can be applied to their weapons, adding a chance on hit to proc extra effects or damage, which this was removed in patch 3.0.2 with Wrath of the Lich King, but is still available in Classic era. Where this is kind of similar to alchemy in a way, where I think you could get like herbs, and then you could combine the herbs together to make like special poisons that you can add onto your daggers. But in the modern version of World of Warcraft, rogues can just apply poison to their daggers as like a buff thing. But then there's also lockpicking, which allows a rogue to open locked chests, doors, and lockboxes. Lockpicking originally required manual leveling, much like a profession, but was changed in the Cataclysm expansion to simply increase incrementally as a rogue increases in level. Like a service profession, lockpicking skills are often in demand and are marketed and solicited on the chat system trade channel. Where lockboxes are a very common drop that pretty much anyone who has played World of Warcraft for a decent amount of time has gotten at least one of, and rogues are able to pick those locks for people to then open so you can get the items within. And in vanilla World of Warcraft, you used to have to level this manually, where you had to go around and just open a bunch of lockboxes in order to raise your skill, which is not a thing anymore. But then there's riding, where you can ride ground, flying, and swimming mounts of all shapes and sizes. Riding is taught like a profession, but each major proficiency level simply improves your ability to ride mounts of additional types or at faster speeds. It requires a much higher level and carries a much higher cost than a normal profession, and while it obviously neither gathers nor produces, there are some mounts which allow passengers and could conceivably be used to provide transportation as a service, which is a very fun idea. And riding is just always like a big thing in World of Warcraft. And then finally we have rune forging, which allows a Death Knight to emblazon their weapons with empowering runes, similar to enchanting, where this is barely a profession and it mostly just uses like the profession like UI and whatnot, and you can just like give a permanent buff to your weapons as a Death Knight, which is cool. But I think with that, I'm going to go ahead and call this episode good here, where we spent a lot of time exploring Feralas and again a couple of levels and completed mini quests, and also unlocked a couple of runes while we did this, which was fun. And we spent a lot of time talking about professions, where I feel like this is mostly going to be the final time that I talk about professions in World of Warcraft, but I might explore archaeology a little bit on a stream, and then there's always a chance that I do a little bit more here and there, but this might be the end of it for me, except for just doing some skinning and leather working on this character as we progress with this character. Where I hope everyone enjoyed watching this episode, and I hope you all are taking good care of yourselves. Remember, as always, to drink some water, check your posture, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time in the world of Azeroth. Goodbye.